How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Today, let's talk about personal finance. Since this channel is about personal finance after all, I'm going to give you a broader look of all this, kind of like from a 10,000 feet point of view. You see some kinds of debts are worse than others, of course. Some of them have really high interest rate, others have really low interest rate. However, my personal view is that I really dislike debt. Even good debt like mortgages, I still dislike. Because in the end, when you think about it, who uses debt? It's the poor people that uses debt because you cannot afford to buy something. That's why you have to borrow money to buy that thing. For example, I personally could not pay for college all by myself, so I had to get student loan. I could not pay for this place that I'm living in, so I have to get a mortgage. All of these things that you finance, no matter if it's good debt, bad debt, you still have to have money coming out of your pocket to service the interest rate on all of these. For example, for a mortgage, let's say it's a $200,000 loan, 4% interest. Every single year, you have $8,000 worth of interest coming out of your pocket, coming out of all the wages that you earn every single year, out of your pocket into the banks. Now, even if you look at the tax advantages of it, maybe $8,000 is not coming out of your pocket. Maybe only $6,000 is after you do the mortgage rate interest deductions from your taxes. So just having a mortgage sitting there, it represents a little bit of outflow of cash from whatever you bring in. You could argue, yeah, mortgages is a good debt and maybe it actually earns you money. However, when you think about should you pay it off or not, let's say you have $200,000 to completely pay off this mortgage. Instead of paying this mortgage off, a lot of people would rather take this and maybe invest it in a new property, or maybe they would put it in the stock market instead. The way to think about this is if you had the money to pay off the house with, but instead you don't and you go invest it instead thinking that you would make 8%, 10% per year. This is the same thing as going to the bank and go, hey, can I borrow $200,000 at whatever mortgage interest rate that you're borrowing? Let's say it's 4%. And then you take this money that you borrow from the bank and then you put it in the stock market. Now, when you put it this way, a lot of people may not actually do this. Let's say you have a place to live, all owned and paid for. Would you actually go to the bank and borrow gobbles of money just to invest in the stock market? But what if, let's say you can borrow $1 million at 4% or maybe $10 million at 4%? Would you still take this money and go to the stock market and invest all this instead? This is an interesting exercise because once you borrow the money from the bank, you're actually racing against time. Every single year, you have to make more than that 4% that you're paying the bank. Now, when you put this restriction on yourself, you could lose your pants once in a while if there's a market downturn. If, for example, even if the market is flat for 1 year, you make 0%, you're going to be losing 4% and you have to pay the bank still. Let me switch gears a little bit and talk about all the types of debts there is and what I think about all of them. Generally, I dislike all of them, but if you have the cash, you really should use the cash to pay for it in full instead of financing, because all that interest is just going out of your pocket. Mortgages, I just talked about. Student loans, sometimes you can't help it. You have to get a student loan if you want to go to college. Car loans is a little bit more affordable because you can actually save up enough within a year or so in order to buy a car. Of course, it's not going to be a very nice car. It's a usable car, and that's what most people should do. Personal loans, I think most people can avoid as long as they spend below their means and they never get into this situation where they don't have enough emergency funds to fund whatever needs they have. Credit cards, of course, I talk about in length, and they have roughly an average of 15% APR. If you have credit card loans and you let it get out of control, it would totally control your life. So you really have to pretend this is on fire and give it your highest priority to pay down those credit card loans. Rent to own types of debt is sort of stupid to me because you are actually paying a lesser amount, yes, but over the life of the loan, you're likely paying more than buying the thing brand new. It appeals to people that cannot afford to buy the whole thing full price. Really, if you cannot afford to buy something full price, you really should save up for it, because if you do, you're going to save yourself, I don't know, upwards of 30% off the full list price of the item, because when you rent to own, you're paying a premium on top of this. 0% financing until maybe 2 years away from now. Those are really good at getting people that goes, oh, I don't have to pay anything. Oh, by then I'm going to be that much richer. I'm going to have saved up. Or someone that isn't a really good saver, they think they can save enough. They get this 0% thing, they get the product, they bring it home, and then 2 years down the line, they forget about it and then they suddenly have to pay. The way they get you is if you do not pay every single penny by the time is up, they would charge you the finance fee all the way from the beginning. So then suddenly you're going to get this really hefty penalty that you have to pay. Pawn shops, come on guys. Pawn shop sounds like it's for people that are really in dire need. Suddenly they need to pawn their assets for some money because they don't have any other money to pay for whatever expense they have. You get around from needing to pawn anything by spending responsibly so that you have a good emergency fund. Also, if you do plan to pawn anything, whatever you pawn, they're likely going to give you a really low amount for it. It's like pennies on the dollar. So it's much better if you just take that item and just eBay instead if you have the ability to do so. Title loan is a bad idea because you might have a car or something and you want to get a loan, and then they're going to use that as collateral, so you're just kind of risking your asset right there. If you're unable to pay, they're going to take whatever asset it is and likely make a lot more off of you than if you just paid back the loan. So they would prefer that you defaulted and get your asset instead, really. Debt consolidation is generally good if you're able to consolidate and pay it off rather than in the reverse, because you consolidate it and suddenly your payments are lowered and you go, oh great, I don't have to pay as much, and then you just end up spending more. So it could go either way. Payday loan is kind of like the most despised thing ever. Like, I wish they just do not have this ability at all, because they generally charge you like $15 per $100 that you borrow, which is pretty hefty. This is not 15% over the entire year. This is 15% in just 2 weeks. So by the time you work out all the math, it's really a 400% APR. This is a lot higher than even credit cards. So this is kind of like toxic lava, and it's burning, I don't know, it's like acid basically. You should not ever touch it. It's like getting money from a loan shark almost. So there you have it. Those are my views on debt, and I really hate debt, and I personally am trying to get rid of them as fast as I can, including my mortgage as well. Personally, I do not have any other debts that I mentioned except a mortgage. I like to always think and remind others that whenever you pay down your mortgage, it's like a guaranteed certificate of deposit. The amount you earn does not come out in cash. The amount you earn comes out in net worth at the end. So let's say you pay $1,000 extra in your mortgage and it's a 4%. You get at the end of that year a 4% reduction in the amount that comes out of your pocket. So it's the same thing as a 4% CD, except you do not see cash in your savings account. Instead, you see your net worth increase instead. It's a little bit different way of thinking about it, but you really should think about your net worth rather than trying to get your bank account to grow more and more. I hope you enjoyed this way of thinking personal finance, debt, and the like. Don't forget to give me a like on this video, comment down below. Let me know what you think of debt. If you're interested in supporting this channel, don't forget to check out my Audible link down in the video description below, where you can get a free audiobook, and if you don't completely like the audiobook or the service, you can cancel before the trial period ends. You can still keep the audiobook and you can still help benefit this channel. I also have a 30-day free trial for Gamefly down below, a Patreon over here, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.